To talk us through the details of the planned changes, we're joined now by Daniel Webb from the Human Rights Law Centre in Melbourne. Daniel Webb, what do you make of these changes, first of all?
Well, I think the changes we've seen today are deeply concerning. First, they reintroduced temporary protection visas. TPVs are bad policy in that they deny people who've proved that they genuinely need our protection the certainty and the permanency that they need to be able to move on with their lives. And I think that's adverse to their interests, and it's also adverse to the Australian community's interests, because it's our community that they will become a part of. But TPVs really are just the tip of the iceberg. There's plenty of other details in today's reforms, and there's an awful lot of devil in those details.
Yes, and it's quite complicated. Let's deal with the TPVs first.
Sure.
The temporary protection visas, but there is also now a safe haven enterprise visa. Are they one and the same thing?
Oh, they're very similar. My understanding is that the latter, I forget the name that you gave to it, but
the Safe Haven Enterprise.
Safe Haven visa, it will require people to live in certain regional communities and undertake work.
Right.
So really, in principle, it's a very similar concept in that these people have proved that they've genuinely fled persecution, but they remain in limbo. They don't know whether one day our government will uproot them and send them back, and that's an awful state to leave families languishing in.
But on the other hand, do you expect that under the changes, some asylum seekers could eventually be given could be given permanent residency, stemming on from those two types of visas you just mentioned?
Not from the temporary protection visas, but under the other category, there does appear to be some long-term potential for people to be given some sort of permanent visas. And to the extent that there is that potential, I think that's something we should welcome. But for the most part, what we've seen today is another initiative by the Immigration Minister that seeks to deny people permanent protection, and permanent protection is what they need in order to be able to move on with their lives in peace and certainty.
Why do you think Mr Morrison has introduced these changes?
The Immigration Minister has said for a long time that his intention is that no one who comes to this country by boat should ever receive permanent protection, and this is his latest attempt to deliver on that.
But in some respects, people will get permanent protection, won't they? That's what we've just discussed.
Yeah, well, they won't get permanent protection visas if they jump through certain hoops and tick certain other boxes. There's some potential for them to get some other category of visa that is permanent. But they won't get permanent protection visas. Now, that sounds very technical. It's probably the product of pretty complex and prolonged negotiations between the Minister and the crossbench. But fundamentally, most people, in fact the overwhelming majority of people who come to this country by boat, are going to be denied the permanent protection that they really should receive.
All right, let me move on to the other aspect that we've heard about today, and that is the movement of refugees, those asylum seekers who are deemed to be refugees, going to Cambodia. What do you make of that?